So, after watching the Season 10 deep dive, I generally don't think this is just a fantasy update anymore. I think Embark's basically told us that the finals are starting a completely new story. Because if you actually listen to what they say in that video, Season 10 isn't just a cool theme, it's the moment the old Moltco vs CNS conflict gets broken and something way bigger steps in. So the biggest thing I took away from the deep dive is that the devs are clearly trying to tell us Season 10 is not business as usual. Yeah, they gave us the background on the world, the game show, the corporations, all of that, but the actual important part is the way they keep framing Season 10 as a turning point. They literally say this is where they're breaking the tug of war between Moltco and CNS and bringing in a third force. That alone is massive, because that tells us straight away this season isn't just building on the old story, it's changing the structure of it. And this is why I think they spend so much time in the video reminding us about Moltco and CNS. It's not just a random lore recap, basically setting up the idea that most of the finals so far, the story has been this constant push and pull. Moltco, the corporate side, the side that wants control, and then CNS, the side that hacks, disrupts, and pushes back. That's the normal state of the finals, and that's the conflict we've known. So when the devs say Season 10 is breaking that tug of war, that line matters way more than what people think, because they're not just adding into the same fight, they're telling us the old fight isn't enough anymore. Now the biggest reveal in the whole deep dive is obviously the third force, and what makes it interesting is the way they describe it. They say this force has been dormant for a while, basically watching what Moltco and CNS have been doing with the finals, and now it's decided to step in and give its 2 cents. That wording is really interesting because it makes this new force sound like something that's already been in the background, not something brand new that showed up out of nowhere. So straight away my brain goes to, has this thing always been connected to the finals somehow? Has it been hinted at before and we just didn't realise it? And some of the weirder seasonal choices from before actually more important now? That's why I think this reveal is huge, because it feels less like a random new villain and more like something embedded in the world finally coming alive. But for me, the most important line in the entire deep dive is this. The dev says this third force's only means of communication is through the finals itself. That line changes everything, because if that's true, then Season 10's weirdness isn't just style. It's not just like, oh cool, fantasy theme. It means the changes we're seeing in the arena, the visuals, the tone, the whole vibe, could literally be the force communicating through the game show. Because now the season theme itself becomes part of the lore. The trailer becomes part of the lore. The map changes become part of the lore. Even small details could matter way more than usual. And that's exactly why this season feels so different already. Now this is where the deep dive gets really smart, because they specifically say that Moltco and Isolde originally had this beautiful medieval season planned for Season 10, but then something happens. This new force appears and everything transforms. Not just medieval, not just fantasy theme, but more magical and more unpredictable. That's a massive detail, because if they wanted to, they could have just said, yeah, we want to do a fantasy season, but they didn't. They specifically framed it as, there was one plan and then the plan got changed by this new force. That means that the entire Season 10 aesthetics might actually be the result of an in-universe interruption, not just art direction, not just marketing, but an actual story event. And honestly, that's probably the coolest lore concept the finals has so far. And then the dev pretty much spells it out for us. He says this is now a tripolar conflict, which they're going to expand in future seasons. That means Season 10 isn't just a one-off gimmick, this is the beginning of the next phase. And the line he gives is honestly a perfect summary. Moltco controls, CNS disrupts, this third force transforms. That last word is the one I keep coming back to, transforms, because control and disruption still makes sense inside the system, but transformation, that sounds like changing the actual rules, changing the identity of the show, changing what the finals even is. And if that's where it's going, then Season 10 might actually be the season where the game stops being a battleground between two factions and becomes something we don't fully understand yet. And if there was any doubt, the devs literally say, we have started a new story in the finals. That's it. That's the confirmation. That's why I keep saying this isn't a theme update, because they're not being that subtle there at all. Season 10 is the start of something new, not just a continuation, not just more of the same, a new story. So if anyone still thinks this is just, oh, they made it a fantasy this season, nah. Embark literally told us it's bigger than that. And the last thing that stood out to me is when they said they were sprinkling clues across all the features in the game and they want players to piece it together. That's important, because that means if you care about the lore at all, this is probably the season where you're actually going to start needing to pay attention to everything. Not just trailers, not just patch notes, absolutely everything. Because if this third force really is communicating through the finals itself, then the whole season might basically be one message. And honestly, that's why I think this deep dive is one of the best lore reveals they've done. Because it doesn't just explain Season 10, it tells us that the finals might be becoming something neither Moltco nor CNS can fully control anymore. But that's my take after watching the deep dive. Do you lot think this third force is actually the biggest lore reveal we've had so far? Or am I overcooking it a bit? Because honestly, I think Season 10 might be the start of the best story arc the finals has yet. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. I also stream on Twitch, YouTube and TikTok every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So stop on by. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you later.